What's up, YouTube? It is your boy JB, and we're here today with the review for The Real Housewives of Orange County. This is season 16, episode 1. The episode was titled Fancy Pants is Back, you guys. So, I'm gonna give OC a shot. Last season of OC was boring. But I mean, that was the beginning of the pandemic for one. And then number two, Kelly Dodd was on there. So now that Kelly is gone, I'm free and clear to review this show. So before we get into it, if you guys are watching this video or any other on the channel and are not yet subscribed to the channel, then I'm gonna need you guys to do me a big, huge favor. Stop taking me out on this date and having me pay for it at the end of it. Hit the subscribe button, turn your notifications on, like the video, share, all that good stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, share, everything in the book. Now, with that out the way, you guys, without further ado, let us discuss The Real Housewives of Orange County, shall we? What I think I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna start with the new girls, and then we'll work our way back up. So we'll start up with Noella. So Noella, who will be over here somewhere, she's a good looking. Actually she's gorgeous. To be quite honest with you, she's a gorgeous woman, right? She's very tall. She has her face. The thing that I was looking at the most with Noella, her teeth. They're so perfect. I was like, wow. And then I kept looking at, even when I saw the pictures of the ladies and I saw Noella, I was like, so is she? Because I mean, she has a tint to her skin, right? So I was like, is she biracial? Is she black? And we saw her mother. So her mother lives with her. Noella has a husband. And should we talk about Noella's husband already? Yeah. So we really got introduced to Noella when she went to lunch with Heather and with Jen, Dr. Jen. We'll talk about Dr. Jen in a little bit, right? So not Heather, but Noella's husband is an attorney. His name, he has a billboard out there that says Sweet James. So she and her husband live in this house, this big, huge, lavish house, right? Her mother lives with her. We find out that, she says this is her words, not mine. She was a welfare baby, but her mother built her own practice up, right? And then we saw a picture of her mother, and I believe that was her father, a black man. So I'm assuming that she's biracial. I could be wrong, but I'm just getting that vibe from her, right? We also find out that she was once friends with Bronwyn Wyndham Burke. You know something? We'll talk about it in a little bit, but Jen. When I first saw the picture of the cast, I was like, I thought they fired Bronwyn because Jen kind of looks like Bronwyn just a teensy bit. I was like, I feel like I'm looking at Bronwyn all over again. Speaking of Jen, let's go ahead and get into Dr. Jen. So Dr. Jen, I think she said what kind of doctor she is, right? But I believe she's like a plastic surgeon. Well, not necessarily a plastic surgeon, like a doctor who does Botox, injections, fillers, things like that. Because that's how we met her when Gina and Emily went to her practice to get some stuff done. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. Not being shady, but when Gina got that stuff done on her face, I was like, what did she get done? Gina still looked the same. That's not shade to Gina, but Gina just still looked the same, right? So we are introduced to Dr. Jen's husband, whose name is Ryan. And I was like, okay, so this entire season, is Ryan going to always be in the scene shirtless? Because in this first scene we see of him, he's shirtless. Then as we saw Dr. Jen getting ready for a party that she's getting ready to go to that Heather is throwing, she's like, she needed help with her dress. And she needed it pulled up. He says pull up or down. And he comes in shirtless again. I was like, oh, okay. So she tells us, I know she has 20 years experience in the medical industry, but I think she's been doing this for the last 10 years or so, something like that, right? So she tells us about how she and Ryan met. They met at a party, but they couldn't give each other their numbers because at the time they were with other people. But I think she said maybe a week later he hit her up, I guess, because he had broke up with the person. Well, she had broke up with her person, and she assumed he broke up with his, right? So they've been together. Forgot how long she said they've been together. They have twins and a son that are 15 months apart, and that's really all it is for, yeah. So with Noelle and Dr. Jen, this is just an introduction to them, so we don't have a lot from them. Who we really got a lot from was Emily, Shannon, Heather, and a little bit of Gina. So we're gonna go on ahead and move forward and talk about them. Actually, with Emily, we didn't really get a lot from Emily either, so let's go ahead and talk about Emily. So we see Emily, we see Gina, and we see Shannon. So Emily, Shannon, and Gina went out for lunch, right? You know, Emily, you've been doing this since last season. For sure, since last season. Like, you really be trying to be friends with Shannon. Especially last season, it was really cringeworthy to watch Emily try and be friends with Shannon. But it's interesting the fact that the people that Shannon was once cool with are no longer on the show, right? Vicky is gone. Thank God Kelly Dodd is gone. I had heard rumblings that Tamara was supposed to come back, but I don't see a Tamara. And actually, when I was, I was trying to see if the taglines that came out yesterday, I saw that, Shannon and Tamara are still into it with each other. I'm like, wow. Interesting, right? So Emily says that they're the new Tres Amigas. I was like, you're really working hard for this friendship with Shannon. Now, do I think Shannon wants to be, I don't know if Shannon wants to be best friends with Emily. She might be cool with her, but, oh, God. Emily just, Emily, you just kind of go a little hard for it. But hey, if that's what you want to do, go for it. And it's really interesting to see this scene with them, given the history with, Emily, Gina, and Shannon. Hey, if they like it, I love it. But there's more to this story that we'll talk about in just a little bit. So we see Gina. So we saw Gina. Now, one thing I do want to point out about Emily and Gina, they both look amazing. They really look good. Gina has, progressed since last season, right? Because what season was that where she had that hair and it just looked like it wasn't brushed or combed, where they tried to crimp it, and it just was like, where's the rest of your hair at? But yeah, Emily, Gina look amazing. So we see them, they get ready to go work out, right? So we see Gina. So Gina is talking about the fact that, you guys remember the whole situation with she and her ex, Matt, right? And this all came out in 2019 at the reunion, and then it played further into last season. I mean, I know that the girl got kids with the man, but after that situation, she talks about the fact that they're getting better with each other. I'm like, ugh. If somebody abused me, I don't know that. I mean, yes, we have kids, but you have your relationship with the kids. I have mine. We don't have to. I mean, we can talk, but I don't know if I would be. I just don't know. We also talk about the fact that Gina and her boyfriend Travis, they're still together. Do they still live in the house that they said that Shannon called small? I mean, if the house was small, the house was small, right? But it is what it is, right? But Gina's talking about the fact that she had to read her victim impact story, right? And, she wanted to call Travis and Emily to have them there, but she just didn't want them to hear what was said, right? So she read her impact story, her impact statement, and Matt said he did what she said in the impact statement, right? So then we also find out that Shane has passed the bar exam finally. I mean, especially last season, the way that Shane was treating Emily. Emily's better than I am. I gotta say that Emily is a better person than I am, because Shane is an asshole. And then in the trailer, when they've been married 13 years, she said, did you think we would be married this long? He said, I thought I would be dead by now. I don't know how Emily puts up with Shane. I don't. Really don't. So then we see, as Gina and Emily, this is where we were introduced to Dr. Jen, right? So we find out a little bit more about, what Emily has done to her body. So Emily had her breast implants removed, right? She had fat transferred to her breast, and she had a breast lift, right? And this is all after her hip replacement surgery that she had. And then she had a mini lower facelift, right? So she doesn't have double chins anymore. She just has one chin. So she looked, yeah. Suffice it to say, they all look really good, right? Over to Miss Shannon Storms Bedore. I really would have got rid of that last name. I would just be Shannon Storms at this point. Wait, is she? Because I know Andy says Shannon Storms Bedore. Does she still have Bedore on her last name? Like the way that David did her, wouldn't have kept that name if you paid me. So Shannon's girls, they have all grown up, right? Her oldest, Sophie, who is now 20, she is here in Texas. She goes to Baylor, and she's talking to, she's taking a girl shopping, right? And it's Shannon, so we can expect we can expect Shannon to be Shannon, right? So her daughter is like, what if I decide that I want to move to Texas after I graduate school? I don't know why Shannon brought up Zika. I haven't heard of Zika in a few years, but hey, we find out. Now, see, here's the interesting thing, because I thought at one point that Shannon and John had broke up with each other, but Shannon said that she and John are still going strong. I was like, I thought they broke up. I thought they broke up last season. When did they get back together? I don't remember that. So then we saw as, so just because they sprinkled some scenes in, right? So we had this scene where Heather had reached out to Shannon, right? She wanted to do lunch with Shannon. So Shannon was like, I already had lunch planned with my girlfriend, Gina, right? She says, is it okay if I bring her? And Heather was like, absolutely, right? So to backtrack to that dinner, that lunch that Gina, Emily, and Shannon had, right? Well, seems like the three of them dined and dashed, and somehow Heather came to the restaurant because Terry was having a business meeting there, and Heather paid for the meal. Heather, you're a lot nicer than me. Them drunk heifers would have been, just been banned from the restaurant, because I don't know if I would be that nice to pay their bill, but hey, you go for it. So also I have to mention the fact that, so when Heather and Shannon were talking, right? They were talking about this woman named Nicole. And, we'll get into Nicole a little bit. We'll get into Nicole when we talk about Heather. But, Heather said, my friend Nicole, she said she knows you, but she doesn't believe that you remember her. So, she was like, yeah, I kind of do remember her. If this, she said her maiden, she said her last name that she previously had. I don't know if it was her maiden name or if it was a name that she had before, but she said a name. She was like, I don't know if that's her last name. So then at one point we saw that, Heather did ask her what her last name was, and she told her. She's like, oh, so Shannon does remember you. Well, Shannon doesn't have the fondest memory of her, right? Because Shannon had told Gina and Emily a secret, I guess. Well, it's not really a secret because Gina blabbed it to the producers. So the thing is that years ago, I'm assuming this is years ago, and they didn't say if this was before, which I'm going to assume it's before Heather and Terry got together. If Heather doesn't know what this is, but Nicole sued Terry. They didn't say what she sued him for. But I'm gonna assume it's medical malpractice, right? Because he's a doctor and a plastic surgeon, so I'm gonna assume it's some kind of medical malpractice. So Gina feels that Heather should be, that Heather should know this, and that Shannon should tell her. Heather is like, no, not Heather, but Shannon's like, no. Oh, my bad, you guys, didn't mean to burp in your face. Like, you would think this is the end of the world, the way that Shannon is acting. Like, you could say, hey, and see, the thing with Shannon is, Shannon kept talking about the fact that she dated Tommy Lee after Pamela Anderson was with him. I'm like, Shannon, just tell the woman what it is. So Nicole, you're good. Ooh, now that is interesting. When you literally sit and just think about it, that is interesting, though, right? That Nicole is friends with Heather, and you sued her husband. You know who her husband is. Like, you know who. You obviously know that that's her husband and that you sued him. Ooh, that is a good one. Like, damn. When you think about it, it's interesting. But that speaks more to who Nicole is and not Shannon. Shannon should just be open. But hey, that is a tricky web right there. But we're gonna move on and we're gonna wrap up the episode. So, we're gonna wrap up the review. So we got reintroduced to Heather Dubrow, right? So Heather is back. She is in her home. The home is 22,000 square feet. There are 13 rooms in the house. There's a theater in the house. I'm like, damn. And then when Heather gave Shannon and Gina that tour of the house, my face dropped. I was like, damn, that's how rich I want to be. Just throw it in the house. She got the shower. I love her bathroom and her shower. The fact that when she comes out of the shower, she got a towel closet that has the towels warm. So I was like, oh my God, I need that in my life one day. The theater, the pool, her office. Terry's office was a little basic to me, but she said it's just for appearances. Her studio where she does her podcast, I was like, OMG. Heather's house is freaking amazing. She has a kitchen for the butlers. I was just like, damn. Did I go to, like, I wanted to go to school for, to be a nurse at one point. I was like, damn, should I have stuck with the medical side? Hell, I want to go to school to be a nurse at one point. I want to go to school to be a lawyer at one point, but I eventually settled on business, right? Because the reason that I said no to being a lawyer and to, the other nursing, well, actually I haven't said no to nursing, I just haven't finished that degree. But the reason that I said no to being a lawyer is because I was like, do I want to be in school for 8 years? Because most of, nurses and doctors, they can be rich, but they also have numerous amounts of student loan debt. So that's what I thought about. I'm like, I don't want the debt. It would be nice to be buku rich, but I don't want the debt. But that house was badass as hell, right? So, we got caught up with her kids. So she told us what the kids are doing, right? She was talking to the kids about building a home in Idaho. I was just like, oh my God. It must be amazing just to wake up every day and say, I'm Heather Dubrow. I'm married to Dr. Terry Dubrow. Oh my God. Heather doesn't even need this damn show. Heather does not need the Real Housewives of Orange County. So this is just play money for her. Because you are married to Terry. Terry has botched with Dr. Nassif. Terry and Paul. How did they link up with each other? How did Terry and Paul link? Well, but hey, back to the show. We move on. We are introduced to Nicole. So is Nicole gonna be? I think Nicole is a friend of the housewives because there are 6 women. So Dr. Jen, Noella, Heather, Gina, Emily, and Shannon. So I'm going to assume that Nicole is a friend of the housewives. So we see Heather and she's telling her about the party that she's gonna have, and she also invites her out to lunch. And Nicole asks Heather, did she know about Noella? She says no. She says, how about you invite her to lunch with us? So she has. So she does. And then she tells her about, she and Shannon texted, and that is when Nicole said that she knew Heather, but she doesn't feel that Heather is going to remember her. She doesn't feel that Shannon is going to remember her. So then we see Heather, she's planning her party right before, Noella and Nicole show up, right? So I will say one thing about Noella. When she first met, Heather, she made a grand entrance. She looked amazing. Actually, both ladies looked amazing, right? So we find out that Noella and Nicole met each other at a private, in an airport at a private, in a bathroom at a private airport, right? They had the same bracelet on. I've already told you guys about Noella's husband. Now, what I didn't tell you is how they met. So they met online, and she says the first time that they met each other, they fooled around, and they have a sex dungeon. I'm like, oh, so you guys have what Candy Burris was alleged to have. All right, you guys. But that is the first episode of The Real Housewives of Orange County. Please let me know if you guys watched the episode. If you guys didn't watch the episode, just tell me, just leave your comments, whatever you want to say. Leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell button, share the video, and you guys, with that out, and you guys, I am tongue-tied. I can't even speak this morning. Like the video, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell button so you guys are notified when I drop anything else. Share the video, you guys, and until that next one, you guys stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Remember to wash your hands or wear a mask. Socially distance. Be blessed, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.